Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Sandy Laycox, editor-in-chief of Leader's Edge. In this episode, I talk with Ryan Flanagan, executive vice president and real estate practice leader at Heffernan Insurance Brokers. Rising property rates due to storms, crime, and inflation, office clients coping with post-pandemic workforce changes, and the overall economic environment are all factors affecting real estate owners. And we discuss it all. Give it a listen. Ryan, it is great to have you here with me. Very excited to talk all things real estate today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll dive right in. You are the real estate practice leader at Heffernan. And
Yes.
One of the big things that we've all been talking about in insurance is commercial property rates. So I'd love to hear how you're addressing the continuously rising rates with your clients. And then following that, for those who are in continuously Nat Cat exposed areas, if you have clients like that or working with anyone like that, how do you ensure coverage for those folks?
Yeah, good question, because it's crazy. As you mentioned, the rates are going up. Wildfire, named storms, crime rates, kind of a new thing within the last 2 years have kind of influenced those rates to a negative. What have we been doing? I would say I brought a lot of self-insurance options to clients, and that can either be in the form of a captive. It can be in form of aerating a layer where the insured actually takes a million layer risk of a larger tower. Or it can be as simple as them asking for a waiver from the lender to increase their deductible. A lot of lenders aren't really thrilled about anything higher than a 25K deductible. And so we'll ask the lenders, hey, interest rates are so cost, prohibitive right now, along with insurance rates. What would you rather do? Have the insured kind of give the property back to the lender where it doesn't really make sense for them to keep it, or can we work with you and find a way to make the overall insurance costs less? So it's really good. There's no secret sauce out there. There's no carrot that's really providing rates so drastically below the market. It's really the insured's temperature, risk temperature, risk profile for them just to kind of take on more risk, so to speak.
That makes sense. Are you finding that it's doable for smaller clients, or is it really only something that mid-sized to larger real estate owners are able to do?
Yeah, I would say the self-insurance idea is pretty much, it's been more of a larger client where they have more of a bank, so to speak, to be able to potentially pay a larger claim. With the smaller clients, though, I've seen a lot of smaller clients bring their properties over to larger insurers and larger insurers. So, like, for example, if you own 2 or 3 apartment buildings, and you have a property management company, a lot of them will say, hey, Mr. Property Manager, please, insure my asset as a part of your portfolio. Greystar, for example, First Communities, there's these larger property managers out there are using their economies of scale for their small individual owners. That being said, I've actually seen within the last 6 months that there's some smaller market carriers that are being really, really aggressive. And so I used to go to these insureds and say, hey, create a master portfolio like that Greystar or whatnot. But there have been a few smaller carriers entering these local Midwest, South, markets that have been crazy aggressive for considering what the market is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about any risk mitigation when it comes to any of these catastrophes or crime or other things? Are you finding clients have any successful strategies, or you can bring them any? And then is that translating at all into any sort of rate, help?
I would say there are risk mitigation strategies out there. I mean, for example, we work with a company called Ember Wildfire Defense. It's like a private fire department out here on the West Coast. It's very popular up in the Napa Valley, obviously. So we recommend them to a lot of our clients when we're going out to market with insurance carriers. We tell them, yes, hey, by the way, they have a contract with Ember Wildfire. I haven't really seen it help the rates so much in that peril, just because wildfire is so catastrophic. And I think these treaty agreements out there just forbid insurance carriers from writing those properties. But in terms of like named storm and heavy rain and wind and all that, fortunately, we have a radar system, or we have the National Weather System that kind of gives us a heads up on when these storms are happening. So I like to shoot emails out to all my clients and say, make sure you clean your sewers and gutters, get on top of the roof, and make sure you don't have any standing water. Standing water has been known to create some roof defects. So there's a lot of things you can recommend your clients to do. Unfortunately, though, because we've had so much catastrophic insurance losses over the last, I don't know how, 24 months or so, I'm not seeing a lot of rate decrease from these carriers, even if I say, hey, this client is, crosses their T's and dots their I's and it gets ahead of the game in risk mitigation. I think insurance carriers, unfortunately, are just kind of the take it or leave it type of attitude when it comes to rate these days.
Do you feel like there is going to continue to be enough capacity out there in the property market?
It's a good question. I mean, I have clients in the affordable housing sector where, I mean, it's just going through the roof. I have clients in Florida where they're just like, how is this even possible? How is this, like, literally you can't operate your business? And so it's like, is the government going to step in and kind of back the insurance rates? Or I don't know. I mean, I think I was speaking to a lot of wholesalers who, spoke with carriers at that point. They thought there was a light at the end of the tunnel before Hurricane Ian last year, which is almost a year to the day. So I think with Hurricane Ian, it kind of pushed us back about 18 months, I'm saying. I tell all my clients that next year have renewals that they're going to have increases. I don't want them to think, hey, we might be past it, and then when I bring coverage or rates, it's high. I haven't seen anything that's been optimistic, unfortunately. I wish I could say that, hey, I think we're almost past it, but I think we have at least another 12 months. And that's just because everything I see is these Maui fires, for example. I mean, there's this catastrophe after catastrophe, and it's not getting better. Crime's not getting better. They're underwriting zip codes where if you fall in a zip code, nope, we won't write your coverage. So it's crazy.
Wow. I didn't realize that the crime had increased so much that it's changing a little bit of the underwriting there.
Both on the property and on the liability side, and just with affordable housing, that brings in a whole other caveat. But yeah, crime is now. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but I think I've just been hearing from underwriters over the last 2 years that, oh, we are declining due to crime score. That didn't happen 4, 5, 6 years ago. It's just within the last 2 years. No, and they'll go on Google Earth and they'll look at photos and they'll see properties that have graffiti on them. And I'll, of course, make the argument, oh, that was 2 years ago, whatever. But I mean, they're looking at those little things to say, oh, this isn't a bad crime area.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, let's talk about office a little bit. Obviously during the pandemic and after, there was a lot of talk about what's going to happen to the office market. I'd love to hear from you. Are you seeing office owners adapting to new workforce trends? Any repurposing of office among your clients?
So the office real estate market is obviously very depressed. I have a lot of clients with office buildings that if they have their existing clients aren't necessarily leaving. However, if they build an office building or they buy one that's already vacant, they're having trouble finding tenants to go in there. My dad owns an office building, it's vacant, and we can't find a tenant. So the office niche is very, very depressed. I don't see that really coming back until companies really kind of motivate their clients to come in. It's the remote work and hybrid work, and you go online, you go on any job listing service, LinkedIn, Indeed, or whatever, and every type of listing has remote, hybrid, whatever. That didn't happen before COVID. Everything was assumed that for the most part, you're in the office. And so, I'm not cognizant to the fact that we can possibly be more efficient with hybrid and remote, but I think that new detail is putting a damper on office clients for sure. And so to answer your second question, yes, I do think I have a few clients that are turning, office related properties, either tearing them down and building multifamily or repurposing them into urgent care type situations, turning them into retail. It doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, I mean, I have definitely seen a few of my clients go out and buy old vacant office buildings with the intent of not leasing them for office space, but repurposing them for, building a multifamily.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned that they're repurposing them into retail, because
Yeah.
that would be also a risky choice potentially.
Yeah, definitely a
Depending
risky
upon the
choice
retail.
because I
Yeah.
mean retail is definitely not doing much better than office, but if you're on the corner of A and A Street, where you have really good retail and there just used to be an existing office building, I mean you might be able to get one of these credit tenants in the bottom floor and maybe you put habitational on the top. Obviously you got to go through zoning and city and all that type of stuff, but assuming that you get past that, I've definitely seen a few clients do that.
Yeah. I think I read a stat that said, 10 to 20% of office will need to be repurposed,
Yeah.
moving forward. It was a PwC stat. So it's just an interesting tidbit that may come around some more.
Absolutely. Yeah. The office, I mean, I've had clients with office buildings that have been sitting vacant and they're brand new in great areas. They're sitting vacant. And I don't know if the client is necessarily being picky on who they lease it to, but yeah. And, it's my office, I don't have everybody coming in every single day. We have kind of a 3-week come to the office type of a deal. We didn't have that before COVID. Everybody wanted to come in and do lunch and do all that. It's just kind of, the world has kind of changed.
Overall economic environment, you touched on interest rates earlier. Obviously, that's challenging for real estate investors. Are you seeing any sort of macroeconomic effects filtering down into your clients and sort of the work that you're doing?
Well, with the increased interest rates and high insurance rates. So I had a client last year before we really kind of got up that would buy and sell apartment buildings, 24 apartment buildings throughout the year, buy, sell, buy, sell. And this year, that same client hasn't bought a single one.
Yeah.
And just with interest rates and insurance rates going up, all these, the NOI, the return for all these investors is certainly being depressed as well. And so these individual insureds have to figure out what costs they can, reduce, because you can't really mess around with interest rates and you can't really, for the most part, mess around with insurance rates. You can kind of make it as efficient as possible, but they got to look out and, do they want to hire a certain landscaper, a property manager? They got to look at costs all across the board. They got to look at payroll within the company. And so these real estate clients, because of the horrible economic environment and insurance, whatever, it's really changing the way they look at things. I mean, I know I have a few clients that told me that they were looking at selling their assets at a certain cap rate this year, but they just can't do it. And so now they're telling their investors, hey, investors, we wanted to get you out after the 5-year cycle. Now we're going to probably hold it for another 7 years. And, the investors can't really argue with that. They know kind of what's going on. So I don't know. I don't foresee it getting better. Actually, I just spoke with somebody in the financial sector right before we hopped on here, and he thinks that interest rates are not going to increase tomorrow, might increase in November, but then after that, hopefully see a depression, because rents are now, which is a part of inflation, rents are actually going down. And the whole inflation percentage, 33% of that is real estate. And so if real estate is starting to go down, both in terms of selling an asset and just rent, we should see inflation's kind of hopefully come down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'll be definitely something to look for. And just kind of watching these real estate developers and investors maybe just kind of waiting through this cycle.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of money on the sidelines for the most part. It's hard to get loans these days. I mean, how do you make a ground up development, even pencil, if you're going to get a construction loan? It's a weird time right now. I mean, if the government's goal was to kind of halt and freeze everything, they're doing a very good job. And it has nothing to do with what I'm seeing. It's just what I see my clients. It's what my clients literally are just kind of, all right, we're in a holding pattern, both in terms of hiring and buying at new assets.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else real estate trend wise that we should know about before we sign off?
No, but what I tell my clients, maybe the glass half full type of personality in me is I tell my clients, I'm like, look, if you can somehow in a crazy world make a special asset pencil today with high interest rates and high insurance rates, I'm pretty confident that in 2 to 3 years, when hopefully the world corrects, that those deals are going to be home run deals. And so be picky, but if they can kind of get close to penciling, I think those are the deals you got to take advantage of. I mean, they always say that in a hard economy or hard market, this is where you can kind of, find value. Well, if you're getting creative and you're putting more equity into the deal and you can somehow make it pencil and it's refinanced, and a couple of years later, then you have a great deal.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely a time to show the value and make investment where you can.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it was great chatting with you, Ryan. Thanks for keeping us up to date, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
No, thanks for having me.
That was Ryan Flanagan, Executive Vice President and Real Estate Practice Leader at Heffernan Insurance Brokers. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. For more Leaders Edge podcasts, go to leadersedge.com.